No one had seen anything like it. Not in the oldest records, not even in the classified files sealed beneath the capital's core. It didn't come with a fleet, it didn't come with noise, it didn't come at all until it was just there. High above the skies of Lorak Prime, in the heart of the Empire's protected space, the stars blinked wrong. For a second, sensors across the system lost connection. When they came back, it was already too late. A single warship hovered above the city, so dark it swallowed the light around it. Long, sharp edges, no markings, no heat trails, no signal, just silence. To the untrained eye, it looked like a forgotten relic. Some old wreck drifted in from dead space, but to the ones watching from the Imperial Command Tower, it was something else, something older, something patient. It didn't belong in this time. It didn't belong to the Empire, and that was the problem. The first person to see it was a boy working on a satellite tower. He thought it was a shadow at first, until it blocked out 3 moons and cast a silent eclipse over the city. He ran. Everyone did, but no one could look away. It hadn't fired a single shot. It hadn't moved. And yet every admiral, every scientist, every intelligence officer who saw it agreed on one thing. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. The warship didn't speak. Not a single broadcast. Not a flicker of light from its hull. It just hovered, motionless, above Lorak Prime, like it had always been there. Like the sky had finally remembered something it had tried hard to forget. People stared from towers and rooftops. Children pointed. Soldiers stood frozen at anti-air batteries, waiting for orders that never came. Inside the Imperial Citadel, alarms were still catching up. Emperor Varkal, ancient and sharp-eyed, stood at the center of the war room, surrounded by a swirl of generals, advisors, and frightened, whispering aides. He didn't blink as the image of the ship floated above the central hollow display. 3 different computer systems were running scans. All of them came back the same. No energy readings, no known tech, no entry path. It hadn't come through hyperspace. It hadn't phased in through a stealth corridor. It had just appeared. It didn't travel, one of the techs said softly. It arrived. Those 5 words hit harder than any explosion. Arrival meant intent, and intent meant danger. Could it be a new faction? Asked General Turnus, his voice edged with doubt. Some rebel construct, Confederacy design? No, said the science minister. She was pale. Her hands shook as she tapped through layers of sensor data. This isn't new. This is ancient, and it's human. The room fell so quiet, even the humming lights above seemed to pause. Someone coughed. Someone else whispered, "That's impossible." But deep inside, none of them believed that anymore. Humans were gone. At least, that's what the Empire had told itself. That's what it had told everyone. A species so violent, so chaotic, they had burned out their own planet and vanished into myth. Their colonies failed. Their governments collapsed. The last known signal from a human ship was nearly 100 years ago, and that too ended in static. So why was a human warship floating above their capital, and why now? The Emperor's voice cut through the silence, low, cold, steady. What happens if we don't act? The silence shifted. Advisors looked at each other, hoping someone else would answer first. Finally, Admiral Jostin stepped forward. If we do nothing, panic will spread. The people are already flooding the public channels. They want protection, reassurance. They're afraid. They should be, said the Emperor, but not of the ship, of what it means. Everyone looked back at the display. The warship hadn't moved, not by a single meter, and yet it felt like it was staring at them, watching, waiting. If this is human, the Emperor continued, then it means everything we've built is a lie. It means they didn't die, they didn't lose, they hid. And if they've hidden this long, they've had time to grow, Time to evolve. He stepped forward until he was right in front of the display, eyes locked on the ghost ship above his city. Time to plan. The idea hit like a wave, not just a surprise attack, a return, a comeback, not with fleets or speeches, but with one ship, one message, a silent declaration that said everything without a single word. The Empire had forgotten humans, but humans had not forgotten the Empire. Outside the Citadel, emergency sirens began to wail. Public transports froze mid-air. Civilian communications were jammed. News feeds were replaced with calm, scripted warnings urging people to remain inside. But everyone knew something had changed. The air felt heavier. The city was too quiet, like even the wind didn't want to draw attention to itself. And then, without warning, the warship moved. Not like a cruiser adjusting its orbit, not like any ship built by the Empire. It slid, effortless, without sound, without light, like it was cutting through the very fabric of space itself. Every targeting system in the defense grid locked onto it. Every cannon, every drone, every orbital platform that could fire something did. And the ship didn't care. It didn't dodge, it didn't blink, it just floated. Then, in less than a heartbeat, a single pulse flickered from beneath its hull. No noise, no color, just a shimmer, like someone had flicked a drop of water into the air. And 4 Imperial battlecruisers vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. No flames, no wreckage, just empty space. Gone. The war room exploded into chaos. Officers shouted, screens blinked red, emergency lights stuttered on across the city. The Emperor stood very still. He didn't yell, he didn't tremble, but his breath was tight, measured, controlled. Because now he understood. This wasn't an invasion. This was proof. Proof that humans weren't behind the Empire in technology. They were ahead. Far ahead. Whatever weapon had erased those cruisers didn't exist in the known galaxy, and they had used it without warning, without build-up, without effort. They hadn't even opened fire. They had sent a message. We're back, and this time we don't need armies to break you. The Emperor looked at his generals. If that ship wanted to conquer us, we'd already be dead. One of them, a younger admiral with sweat on his collar, asked the question none of them wanted to ask. Then what does it want? The Emperor didn't answer, because deep down he already knew. This wasn't a battle. It was the beginning of something worse. It was a shift in power, and the Empire was no longer holding the top seat. The ship remained. It didn't move again after that first strike, not forward, not backward, not anywhere. It hovered above Lorak Prime, unshaken, unmoved, and unmistakably alive. Whatever it was doing, it was waiting, watching, breathing. Inside the Citadel, fear had evolved into something sharper. The Imperial High Command was now fully active, with every ranking officer not already on the front lines summoned back to the core. The Senate chambers buzzed like a wasp nest. Holoscreens across the city flickered between alerts. Speculation and classified briefings accidentally leaked into public feeds. And at the center of it all was that ship. They had named it the Obsidian Ghost, not officially, not in records, but in whispered conversations. It had earned the name. Every satellite that tried to scan it returned scrambled data. Every probe sent to orbit within a kilometer of its hull disappeared. No debris, no trace, just silence. Admiral Kulveth, commander of the Outer Ring fleets, stared at the latest scan results with tired eyes. He had fought through 5 major rebellions, 2 alien incursions, and the purge of the Astari Syndicate, but nothing had ever made him feel this helpless. They couldn't outfly it, couldn't jam it, couldn't even see it unless it allowed them to. And that was what terrified him the most. "This isn't war," he muttered to the room of command staff. "This is humiliation." His assistant, a young officer barely past his 20s, looked up from the console. "Then why hasn't it finished us off?" Kolveth said nothing for a moment. Then, without turning, he answered, "Because it doesn't want to finish us. It wants to break us." The room fell quiet again. On the surface of Lorak Prime, the mood had shifted. The people were no longer just afraid. They were starting to question. Why hadn't the Empire responded? Why had the planetary shield stayed down? Why had the great Helios station, the pride of the defense grid, gone dark when the ship arrived? And then came the second message. Not through words, not even through signal, but through image. At exactly 0400 local time, every screen across every public and private channel flickered once, and then filled with a single frame, a face. Human. Old, scarred, and calm. Gray eyes stared out without emotion. The lines on his face spoke of 1,000 battles. His lips didn't move, but beneath the image etched in plain galactic standard were 4 words. "We never left. Remember." That was all. The message vanished in seconds, but the silence it left behind lasted much longer. Every Imperial citizen who saw it, young or old, loyalist or rebel, felt it the same way, like a ghost had reached out from history and touched their spine. It wasn't just a return, it was a reckoning. The Empire scrambled to regain control of the narrative. Propaganda units pushed emergency updates. Spokespeople called it a trick, an illusion from a terrorist faction, a psychological attack. But it was already too late. People remembered. Old stories long buried came rushing back. Tales of Earth's final war, of human colonies that had vanished but never been found, of human engineers who had once built the fastest drives and human soldiers who had once fought without fear. And more than that, they remembered how much the Empire had feared them. Now they understood why. Inside the Imperial command chambers, chaos had melted into arguments. Who should lead the response? Should they strike again? Should they evacuate the city? Should they try to speak to the ship? That last question came from Commander Isari, head of the Xeno Relations Bureau. She was one of the few voices not shouting. "What if it's not here to destroy us?" she asked quietly. Her words were met with stares. Kolveth scoffed. "It already destroyed 4 cruisers." "No," Isari said. "It removed them. It could have destroyed the whole planet, but it didn't. No civilian targets were harmed. No cities attacked. That's not conquest. That's control. It's showing us what it can do, without showing us everything." The Emperor's advisors exchanged uneasy glances. "Do you suggest we open communications?" asked one of them, his voice brittle. Isari didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were locked on the still image of the warship, hanging above the city like a shadow pinned to the sky. "I'm suggesting," she said slowly, "that we stop assuming this is a war we can win by firing first." The Emperor did not dismiss her. That was strange. Varkal was known for his cold efficiency. His usual response to fear was to crush it, but now he was quiet. He had seen something the others hadn't, not on the screens, not in the data, in the way the people had looked up at that message, in the way the soldiers on the ground had hesitated, in the way his advisors stopped calling it the ship and started calling it the human ship. Something was changing. They were losing control, and not because of weapons, because of memory, because fear of humans had been planted in the bones of the galaxy long ago, and the Empire had tried to bury it. But the roots had never died, and now they were growing back, fast. The Emperor stood slowly, robes shimmering like spilled oil, and walked to the edge of the command platform. He stared at the ship through the thick walls of the Citadel's upper tower. "You want to understand it?" he said. Isari nodded carefully. "Yes." He didn't look back at her. "Then go up there." She blinked. "Up there?" "You asked what it wants," he said. "Find out." Before anyone could object, he raised a clawed hand. "You will not go as an officer. You will not go with escorts. You'll go as a voice." Kolveth leaned forward. "This is suicide." "Or surrender," hissed another advisor. "No," the Emperor said. "It's something worse." He turned back to the room, and for the first time, his voice held the smallest crack. "It's listening." They launched the shuttle at dawn. It wasn't military grade, no weapons, no escorts, just a single diplomatic vessel, sleek, silent, and obsolete by modern standards. The Empire wanted the gesture to look non-threatening, to show they were willing to talk. But everyone watching knew the truth. This wasn't diplomacy, it was a gamble. Commander Isari sat alone in the vessel's main cabin, hands folded in her lap, trying not to tremble. Her orders were clear: go up, make contact, speak if possible, observe everything, and if she didn't return, the Empire would decide its next move without her. She didn't know whether to be afraid or honored. Outside the view window, the obsidian ghost grew closer, its surface as dark and smooth as still water. It had no windows, no visible engines, just jagged armor curves and sharp ridges like scars left from forgotten wars. It wasn't designed to intimidate. It didn't need to. Its silence was louder than any war cry. The shuttle's auto-docking system engaged. No interference, no defenses, as if the ship had been expecting her. When the doors slid open, Isari stepped out and into history. The air inside the ghost was cold but breathable. Lights glowed softly along the walls. If they were lights, they seemed more like memories trapped behind glass, pulsing with purpose. There were no guards, no gravity stabilizers. The ship was alive, but empty. Or maybe not empty, just waiting. She walked slowly down the central corridor, her boots barely making a sound against the metal floor. The walls were etched with lines, old language, older than galactic standard, symbols that twisted slightly when she looked at them too long. She recognized one of them. It was human, a military code used in the early Earth campaigns. She wasn't supposed to know that, but she did. The further she went, the more memories surfaced. Not hers, at least not entirely. Flashes of burning skies, steel cities falling, cries in languages she didn't speak but somehow understood, and then a voice, not from around her but within. "You remember." She froze. Her pulse hammered. "Who's there?" Silence, then, "Not your voice." "Not yet. But it will be." Her breath fogged in the cold air. "Why me?" The corridor lit up, not with brightness but with clarity. A wall shifted, dissolved like smoke, revealing a chamber beyond. Inside, a console floated above a circular platform, symbols spinning like constellations. She stepped forward. Not because she wanted to, because she had to. The moment her fingers touched the console, the chamber changed. The walls faded. The room around her disappeared. And she saw everything, not visions, not dreams, memories. Real, recorded human history, hidden, unspoken, wiped from the Empire's archives. She saw Earth as it once was, not ruined and burning, but vibrant and strong. Humanity's final stand before the collapse. She saw colonies that had never truly fallen, only gone dark by design. A retreat into silence, a plan written in the shadows of extinction. And she saw the faces. Human children taken during the Empire's rise, reconditioned, reprogrammed, raised as Imperials, told their past was fiction, turned into weapons to be used against their own. She saw herself. She wasn't just a representative of the Empire. She had once been one of those children, a girl named Sira Aelion, taken from the last human-resistant stronghold on the asteroid belt of Orion's Reach. Her parents were strategists, revolutionaries. Her father had carried her through a burning hangar, whispering promises into her ear that she now remembered word for word. "One day the stars will call you home." She had forgotten his voice, but now it rang inside her chest, like a bell. Her legs gave out. She fell to her knees as the memories flooded back, the conditioning, the erasure, the fabricated school records, the military commendations, the history lessons written by the Empire's victors. She hadn't been born into the Empire. She'd been stolen by it. The ship wasn't showing her a message. It was restoring what had been taken. And outside, in orbit, the warship remained silent, not as a threat, but as a witness. Back on Lorak Prime, the Empire was splintering. The public had seen the face. The ghostly message had been captured, replayed, dissected. Some still called it a hoax, but many didn't. The fringe colonies were already stirring. Governors began hesitating on orders. The Imperial fleet's command chain weakened as captains started whispering doubts over private channels. And the people were beginning to wonder if humanity had survived, if they were watching, if they remembered what was done to them. What came next? Inside the Senate, debates turned to shouting. Some demanded an immediate attack. Others demanded surrender. A few begged for more information, but none of them could agree on one simple truth. They didn't know what they were dealing with. The Emperor watched from his private chamber, expression unreadable. He hadn't left the Citadel in over 20 hours. Food was untouched, messages unanswered, but his mind never rested. He had seen what the others hadn't. He knew why the warship hadn't spoken. It wasn't there to talk. It was there to listen, and it had chosen who to listen to. In the skies above, the obsidian ghost pulsed once, a soft glow along its underside, a signal, not a weapon, a door. The shuttle disengaged, drifting silently back toward the planet. Commander Isari, or Sira Alien, as she now remembered herself, sat in its cockpit, eyes wide, jaw tight, heart pounding. She carried no message in her hand. The message was inside her. The warship disappeared seconds after the shuttle departed. Not cloaked, not jumped. It simply ceased to exist on all sensors. Gone. But it left something behind. In orbit, directly where it had hovered for hours, a single artifact remained. A black monolith, 6 meters tall, floating in space. No mass, no data, no response. Just one inscription. The truth is coming. The shuttle touched down in the heart of Lorak Prime without a single word spoken over the comms. No escort ships met it, no honor guard waited, just silence. But the Empire was far from quiet. News of the shuttle's launch and return had spread before the vessel even landed. Rumors raced faster than light. People asked what was said, what was learned, what had the humans demanded. The only real answer was this: the warship was gone, and it had taken the Empire's certainty with it. Sira Alien, still wearing the uniform of Commander Isari, stepped out onto the landing pad. Her legs moved like they remembered more than she did. She no longer felt like an officer. She felt like someone cracked open, still holding pieces of a life that had never been hers. She didn't report to the Citadel. She didn't go to the Senate. She went home, if it could be called that. A sterile gray cube of a government-issued flat, decorated with nothing but medals, reports, and silence. She'd always felt a strange emptiness in it. Now she knew why. She wasn't meant to belong here. Not really. The mirror caught her reflection. Sharp uniform, cold eyes, clipped hair. It was all an act now, a mask she could no longer wear. The calm on her wrist vibrated. Encrypted transmission, untraceable. She didn't answer it. Instead, she turned and opened the closet she'd never once used in 10 years of service. At the bottom was a metal case, standard issue for all Imperial officers, to store sentimental artifacts. Most kept medals. She had never opened hers, until now. Inside was a single object, a patch, weathered cloth frayed at the edges, an insignia not seen in public for over a century, a stylized constellation pattern woven in blue and gray, the mark of the Orion Reclaimers, her parents' unit. She clutched it in her hand, not realizing she was crying until she felt the tears warm against her knuckles. The Empire hadn't just erased her past. It had stored it in plain sight. At the Citadel, the Senate was breaking apart, not physically yet, but politically, spiritually, ideologically. Alliances shattered. Fleets stopped answering orders. Governors began declaring neutrality. The outer colonies were already cutting trade routes. Even the loyalist generals had begun issuing private memos to evacuate their families from central systems. Fear didn't live in the shadows anymore. It walked the halls. Whispers of collapse became plans. And then came the breach. Not an attack, not even an explosion, just a transmission, clear, open, and unstoppable. Broadcast across the Empire's main communications grid, overriding everything. It was Sira, her voice steady, her image sharp, her truth unfiltered. She didn't scream, didn't demand vengeance. She simply told her story. She told them about the stolen children, the mind-wiping protocols, the human colonies left to rot while the Empire paraded their extinction as a victory. She showed them the images recovered from the Obsidian Ghost, the records, the erased logs, the experiments. She showed them the face of her father holding her before the raid. And she ended with one line, spoken not as a threat, but as a mirror. The Empire didn't fall today. It fell the day it began lying to itself. Then the screen went black, and the galaxy caught fire. No bombs fell that night. No warships entered orbit, but across the stars the Empire began to bleed. Admirals defected. Soldiers threw down their rifles. Worlds declared independence without permission. Trade hubs, once considered eternal, now lay silent, abandoned. And all of it began from a single voice, one human, one truth, one story. Emperor Varkal remained in the throne room, unmoving. He knew the war was over, not because of a battle, but because truth had done what guns never could. It had broken the spine of an empire. Sira disappeared not long after. No one saw her board a ship. No one saw her cross the border. Some say she returned to the human fleet to help build what came next. Others claimed she vanished into the outer systems, working in silence to repair what the Empire had destroyed. Still others say she was never one person at all, just a symbol, a spark, a voice waiting in the dark. But every child born after that day would know her name, and every map drawn after that year would show a gap where the Empire once stood, now just a memory haunted by 4 words etched into the stars. We never left, remember.